I've been investing for nearly 2 decades, and during that time, I've covered hundreds of companies, if not maybe 1,000. But if you limit that to the companies that I follow now, I recently undertook the task of taking all of them and ranking them in terms of their anti-fragility. And today I will share with you the 5 companies that rank the highest in terms of anti-fragility. My name is Brian Stoffel, and as the time of this recording, I own 4 out of these 5 stocks. I'll tell you which one I don't as we get into it. So first, it's worth pointing out, well, what do I mean by anti-fragility? You might be familiar with my anti-fragile investing framework that has 4 parts. One is the barbell method. The next is redundancy. After that is skin in the game. And finally, valuation. I add all those up and I slap a score on it. But today, what I'm really talking about is the core nugget that I think is the most important, which is a company's moat and its optionality. Here's why I think that's so important. If we think about this, the optionality on the y-axis, that's the ability to create new revenue streams that can almost be a second act for a company. And the moat on the y-axis, then that is where you can defend your business from competition for years, if not decades. Now, if you score really high on optionality, but really low on moat, it's kind of like a sandcastle. You might have a lot of great ideas, but as soon as a wave comes along, it's going to ruin it. And if you rank really high for your moat, but low on optionality, that's not as bad. You have a fortress protecting yourself, but over time, that fortress will probably die. It might be impregnable today, but it'll be irrelevant in the future. And so what I really look for are companies in this quadrant right here, the anti-fragile compounders, where it's a fortress that is aggressively funding its own expansion. Now let's talk about moats. Because when I'm talking about moats, there's 5 that I look for. The first are network effects, where each additional user makes the service or product even stronger. Next are switching costs, where it is really hard to switch away from a company once you start using their product or service. After that is low-cost production, followed by intangible assets like patents, brand, and intellectual property, and finally, counter-positioning. So that's one half of the equation. The other half is optionality. The idea here is optionality is when a company makes defined investments for potential outsized transformational returns in the future. It's kind of like planting a seed, and then later on that seed transforms a company, gives it a second act because of its exponential growth. So let's go through the 5 companies that rank the highest in terms of anti-fragility. Coming in at number 5 was Mercado Libre, the Latin American version of eBay/Amazon/PayPal. Let's first talk about the company's moat, because today it's kind of like Latin America's everything company. First, we've got the network effect. With 120 million unique buyers and a 2-sided marketplace, merchants are incentivized to list on the marketplace, which means that consumers are incentivized to visit it, and so on and so forth. Next, we've got low-cost production, where a ton of packages are shipped through the fulfillment network that Mercado Libre has built, and 3/4 of those are delivered within 48 hours. And finally, just kind of more on that logistics infrastructure, it took over $10 billion to build. And there are some that are trying to make inroads in certain areas, but Mercado Libre is aggressively fortifying the barrier of that moat as we speak. So that's the moat. What about when we talk about the optionality? And for this, we've really got to concentrate on how the e-commerce arm and the fintech arm of Mercado Pago and Mercado Credito, they work together and actually make each other stronger, making this the potential for a mutant compounder. Mercado Pago has millions of daily active users, a fast-growing credit portfolio, and they're able to use the data on both the merchants and the consumers that they've collected over the past 25 years to make smart lending decisions. Next, we can also need to remember Mercado Ads is growing quickly, and the company is expanding rapidly in Mexico, And finally, just keep in mind the flywheel at play. The commerce funds the fintech, and the fintech drives more commerce, and logistics make both dominant. So number 5, Mercado Libre. Coming in at number 4 is the one that I don't own, although maybe I need to reconsider it. I sold a number of years back because of valuation concerns, is Intuitive Surgical, the parent company behind the Da Vinci robotic surgical system. Now, the big thing here is switching costs, because there's generational lock-in. There's the capital switching costs, which is the $1 million+ you have to spend on a new robot. But there's also, and this is underappreciated, the human capital switching costs, where surgeons spend years mastering specific tasks, and not using that robot would kind of mean all of their practice was rendered obsolete. They don't want to do that. We also need to consider that there's a huge install base of Da Vinci systems, with 3.1 million procedures last year alone being performed on it, and 85% of revenue comes in recurring services from instruments, accessories, and services. So the switching costs are huge. What about the optionality? Well, the Da Vinci 5, the newest generation, is rolling out right now. Beyond that, the ion machine for lung biopsies is new optionality. The single port, which is just one arm that can go in through an opening for outpatient and same-day procedures that are less invasive. They are collecting data and providing levels, or could provide levels, of data as a service. And let's not forget that this company 10 years ago was pretty much just involved in hysterectomies and urology, gynecology. And it has expanded meaningfully to bariatric procedures, hernia repairs, appendectomies, and so forth. So number 4 is Intuitive Surgical. Let's now go to number 3, which is Cloudflare, which got its start as a content delivery network to the edge for internet companies. Now, the moat comes in several forms. The first is low-cost production, just in terms of it operates in 335 different cities in 125 different countries throughout the world. It's estimated that 20% of all global traffic goes through Cloudflare, and the switching costs are massive, because once companies start using it for a number of different reasons, it would be hard to pull it out. You also need to remember that it serves a bunch of free customers, but those free customers are actually giving the company more of a moat, because the more traffic that comes in, the easier it is to detect threats, and the company can use its cybersecurity platform to protect all other users. But remember, an upstart couldn't offer that, because they can't afford to give away as much for free as Cloudflare does. That's the moat. What about the optionality? Well, when we talk about that, let's remember that the company's dollar-based net retention is actually accelerating, and recently came in at 120%, meaning that Cloudflare is not only holding on to all their customers, but getting them to spend 20% more per year. Couple of different areas where this optionality comes from. First is Cloudflare Workers, which has to do with edge computing and allowing developers to bypass the centralized clouds. Second is the zero trust environment that it has, which replaces legacy VPNs. Third, and this is really coming into play now, is AI inference, which again shifts from centralized data centers to edge environments where Cloudflare rules the traffic. It is the gatekeeper. And finally is sovereign AI, where public sector and national security contracts are being won over by Cloudflare. So number 3 is Cloudflare. Number 2, most anti-fragile. You might be surprised it's not number 1, is none other than Amazon. Now, this shouldn't be surprising when we think about how this company got its start as a bookstore, and now you can watch NFL football on Thursdays. No one would have guessed that 25 years ago. Now, when we talk about the moat, let's remember that there are 3 market-crushing businesses inside this one stock. One is AWS, Amazon Web Services, which has huge market share globally. Number 2, and it is locked in with switching costs and low-cost production. Number 2 is Amazon Prime, which also has switching costs, with is enormously popular subscription option that has high retention rates and that reliable income, which they've been shown to be able to raise prices on, creates a loyalty flywheel across media, logistics, and their burgeoning pharmacy business. And finally, the marketplace and logistics. The marketplace benefits from network effects where merchants know that they can reach millions and millions of consumers by listing on Amazon's e-commerce website. And those consumers go because of Prime and because of all those merchants. And in terms of logistics, it would be prohibitively expensive for anyone to match Amazon's reach when it comes to delivery. But what about the future? Well, there's actually more irons in the fire than you might guess. The core insight here when we talk about Amazon's optionality is that they are turning their internal costs, the tools that they build for themselves first, for the everything store first, into a global profit center. That's what AWS was. It was a solution built for the everything store that they then sold to others. So a couple different ways this can come. The first is advertising, which we have already seen growing quickly and is an easy, high margin way for them to earn money. The second is AI being built into AWS. The third comes from healthcare, which has started slowly, but will be interesting to see what happens, especially with the combination of One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy. And finally is Project Kuiper, recently renamed Amazon Leo, the global satellite internet link-up rivaling Starlink, which is about to take off. Now, before I get to number one, I have owned all four of these companies and benefited massively from them in the past, which has helped me outperform the markets and the indices over the last 10 plus years. You see this over 11 plus years, actually. My results in the green, the S&P 500 all the way down there at the red, the NASDAQ composite in the yellow. And I'm telling you about this because if you want to join my service, Stock Investing Mentor, you can not only follow my portfolio, but learn how I do what I do, because it comes in three parts. The first is 1 hour of live training every week, Thursday at noon Eastern. It is recorded, where you walk away with one investing nugget to become a better investor. Number two is full real-time access to my portfolio, as well as video explanations with any moves that I make, and valuation updates every 6 to 7 weeks. And finally, 24/7 access to a private online investing community. Now, if you'd like 10% off to join Stock Investing Mentor on an annual basis, click the top link in the show notes below. Fair warning, that 10% off deal will end on Sunday at 11:59 p.m. So let's get to the number one most anti-fragile stock. I believe that is Axon Enterprise. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with Axon, it started out over 25 years ago, primarily just focused on taser stun guns for the police force. But about 10 years ago, they started expanding meaningfully to include body cameras and, really important, evidence.com, which stored and organized all of the footage from those body cameras. And what's happening now is that we're connecting all of the smart devices and using AI to create a full ecosystem. The huge moat here is switching costs, but there's a lot of different ways that optionality can play out. And like Cloudflare, it's worth pointing out that this company has a net revenue retention rate of 124% that is accelerating. So the customers are not only sticking with Axon, they're spending 24% more per year. Now look at all of this optionality using evidence.com, all of that video footage that the company has through their body cameras as the bedrock for this. The first is Draft One, which saves hours of time for police officers, where the first draft of a police incident report is filled in by AI. And then the officer still does need to go back and verify and check everything and make changes, but it saves tons of time. Number two is Drone as a First Responder. The company knows that police departments are looking for safer ways to deal with incidents, and drones are one of them. They are leading there. Third is the ecosystem expansion, which includes things like virtual reality training for officers. And finally, let's not forget the fact that this company has expanded meaningfully beyond U.S. police departments to other first responders, to commercial operations, and internationally. So I believe that Axon is the number one most anti-fragile of all the companies that I've seen over the past 15 plus years. Let me know what company you think I might have missed. Maybe I don't follow it in the comments section below. Don't forget, if you want to join Stock Investing Mentor, you can get 10% off until Sunday evening. And don't forget to hit subscribe for the next time I decide to rank all my stocks on a different metric. Until then, Brian